Thank you for joining Scorcher Toys in another exciting death match. In this corner, we have the Evolution Toy Legioss. Evolution Toy released 4 variants with the core 3 going for 28,800 yen. In the other corner, we have the Sentinel Riobot Legioss, which just enjoyed its second release at an MSRP of 25,000 yen. Both lines began with problematic Blue ETA releases and made improvements before moving on to the Zeta toys. If you are only interested in the blue releases, do check out the separate reviews of those toys by clicking the card now. If you're wondering what a Legioss is, in Genesis Climber Mospeada it's pronounced Legioss, but that sounds awkward to my English-speaking tongue. I know some people prefer Legioss and Mospeada, but if you're not speaking Japanese, there's a good chance you know this as the Alpha Fighter from Robotech the new generation, and that's the term I would have used had either of these companies bothered to get a Robotech license. If you have an itch to buy toys from any of your favorite shows from the 80s or today, support this channel and shop at Big Bad Toy Store by clicking that link in the comments below. In the packaging department, Sentinel is the easy winner. Both companies have no frill packaging. Evolution Toy carried forward the aesthetic from their abysmal VF2 toys, which was a bold strategy since those toys are awful, and you'd think they'd want to get some distance from them. The Sentinel box features nice custom artwork and feels a little sturdier, maybe just because it's a smaller box with a better packaged clamshell within. Both toys include a central missile bay, the gun, and a pilot figure. The Evolution toy includes swap-out open intakes, whereas the Sentinel toy comes with intake covers already installed. The Evolution toy includes a special magazine for mounting to the central missile pod. So if you like that central gun look, you're going to remove the curved magazine and swap it for the 90-degree magazine, and then plug it into the back of that missile bay. In contrast, Sentinel attaches to the center missile bay by having no magazine at all. The Evolution toy comes with 4 painted figures, including a Houquet pilot. The Sentinel comes with a largely unpainted but articulated Houquet figure. Despite the hideous pink, the sculpt is very nice and captures her lovely lady bumps and unique armor. The articulation is also impressive, including ball-jointed neck and hips, as well as pivots at the shoulders, elbows, abdomen, and knees. One thing to note is that Sentinel figure is actually larger than the Evolution toy figures, despite the fact the Evolution toy vehicle is much larger, but I'll come back to that later. Houquet also has a motorcycle she can ride and a clear base to keep it upright. Evolution toy includes missiles that mount under the intakes. You can keep those missiles under the intakes in any mode. Sentinel includes a full display stand consisting of a base, arm mount, arm, and adapters so you can use that display stand in any mode. Sentinel also includes a pair of pylons for the hardpoints, which allows you to connect the gun, missile pod, or perhaps some future weaponry to the bottom of the wing. While this is clever, those pylon parts are tiny and could be easily lost. Evolution toy allows you to plug the gun directly into the hardpoint, but the middle missile bay either attaches to the arms or nowhere at all. For this release, Sentinel also included 3 parts that allow you to convert the gun into a new weapon to mix things up. Sentinel products are a modern reimagination of the original craft, which has allowed them to do some interesting things like this new gun and deciding the pilot wore pink. While the ability to reconfigure this gun is a nice parallel to the handgun the soldiers use, I would have liked if they included enough parts to have 2 different weapons. Also in the box with either toy, you'll find instructions. The Evolution toy also includes additional instructions regarding the changes they made after the ETA toy, a sheet of stickers, and additional fingers. One complaint I would levy at both of these toys is that neither comes with fixed posed hands. At 31 centimeters long in fighter mode, the Evolution toy dwarfs the diminutive Riobot, which barely hits 22 centimeters. In soldier mode, Evolution toy is a bit under 22 centimeters, while the Riobot doesn't reach 17. The show was inconsistent in its portrayal of the vehicles, so you could argue the official stats, which Sentinel has adhered to, don't reflect what we see in the anime. This might be why Evolution Toy didn't specify a scale and why the pilots for their larger toy are smaller than the Riobot. From a heft perspective, the Riobot is heavier per centimeter but lighter overall at 224 grams, exactly half what the largest Gakken toy weighed, while the Evolution Toy comes in at 286 grams. So neither of these toys will feel heavy in your hand, and the Riobot will feel downright small. It's small, but the Sentinel is solid. Check this out. This is why Sentinel can charge what they do. I'm going to pick this toy up by the nose. Just by the nose of the craft, and you'll notice it's not leaning down towards the back. This thing is rock solid. There are pegs from the forearms into the shoulders, pegs in the shoulders into the body. The legs are pegged up above the waist area. Flipping the toy over, everything collapses within each other to make for a very solid, easy to handle, fun to handle fighter mode, which is not something we've seen before. Now, if we take a look at this bird's eye view here, the Evolution Toy is just awful in the overall shape in fighter mode, where Sentinel is really the first company that just nails it. My only complaint with the Sentinel is that big gap between the legs, and I'm really hoping that someday we get a tread toy that really takes advantage of that. Now, in comparison, here is the Evolution Toy, and you can see even if I just go to pick it up, that big sway, or if I push down on it here, this thing is just a noodle. And so there's no rigidity there. The front of the toy starts to separate immediately. You've got things like the shoulders are misaligned because they do not peg in, and the pegs for the arm on the back don't really go into the legs like they should. They pop out as soon as you handle the toy, again, because there's no rigidity throughout the toy. So a much better handling experience with Sentinel. Both of these toys have integrated landing gear, and Sentinel did an amazing job with them. The rear landing gear are the first on any Legioss toy to have this bay actually operate like it's supposed to. So the wheel twists, goes inside there and comes out, twists like that, and is in the proper position. The bay doors open like so. Everything's all gravy, and when the toy is sitting, it is stiff enough so there's plenty of room between the chest and the ground. You can see the head fin is really, really close to the ground. And if you want to make a little more clearance, you can just adjust that front wheel to lift the front end up just a tiny bit. Everything's, again, rock solid, no bowing on the landing gear. In contrast, we have the Evolution Toy, which has integrated landing gear, which is good. All of them are metal, which is also good. The rear landing gear have these funky doors to them that are really large and drag on the ground. So that's less good. And again, you have rigidity problems. The toy should sit with plenty of room for clearance in the chest and even in the head area, but the head will droop, the chest will droop because it kind of bananas due to the lack of structural rigidity. And so you might find some things hanging on the ground that really shouldn't. You don't have any stiffness in that front wheel. So it's either all the way forward or all the way back. Anything in between is probably going to collapse on you. The gun, you may have noticed in the very first intro shot I have, this gun, if you remove the magazine and flip it the right way, it kind of angles off at a weird angle. So you're better off flipping it out with the magazine outward. I don't think most people would know that that's not technically how the line art is. So no big deal there, but something to be aware of. And I know we're used to, at this point, getting a lot of very basic display stands with premium toys, and that's not what Sentinel's done here. We get an actual articulated base with a swivel, a few different points of articulation, so you can bank your toy however you like, and you can choose the angle it's flying at, and you can get it up high or you can keep it low. And this has been a little stiffer this time around than it was on the Edda toy, which is nice. So overall, a very premium accessory to include, and we get that extra weapon, which, as you can see, fits on in fighter mode just fine. Transformation of the Evolution Toy is very intuitive if you've owned any previous incarnation of a Legioss. Now, once you get here, I would say it looks very good, very clean, but it does have some handling issues. Now, we've already talked about how these winglets tend to come out. Another issue that you realize for the first time when you get to diver mode is how bad the hands are on this toy. And now, it's not necessarily when you first get to diver mode, because you actually might hear the hands rattling around in the forearm bay before you even get here. So we'll start with the first problem, is that this connection here, unless it's completely in, there's no real stopper, right? It just wants to come down. On some toys it's loose and will come down and it'll be super annoying. On this toy it's fairly stiff. It holds its position, except for when the weight of the hand comes down, it'll knock it free. So that's kind of annoying. The hand being on a hinge means that if there was a gun in this hand right now, it would just fall right down. Now that right there is the biggest problem here. But we'll start. There's a hinge right here. There's a rotation point at the wrist. There's a hinge for the thumb that comes down. There's a trigger finger that's articulated separately from these fingers, but these fingers connect via one little peg that's very thin and will get stress marked as you do this over and over again. And as you've seen, they do a very poor job of holding those fingers on the toy. So as you handle it, they keep popping off to the point where even in fighter mode, they might fall off and rattle around on you and be very, very annoying. Now over on this side, I've got the hand holding the gun and I've got the forearm rotated around so that the wrist isn't going to pivot downward. Now, if I did spin this around, it's gonna cause problems immediately. So as you can see, this piece has slid down, the hand has come down, bad things are happening here. So that is a bummer, and as you handle the toy, you're gonna have to be cognizant of that. The other issue here is that while we have nice ratcheted shoulder joints that were able to hold the gun up like it was, there are no ratchets in the elbow, nor is there much resistance. So this is just gonna fall right down on me. So again, you have to know the weaknesses of the toy, and as you pose it, consider that to overcome them and get it, again, like I had it in the beginning of this video, we had it in a pretty decent pose. So you're gonna need to work around it to get it in that decent pose. Now, you do have this missile pod here, and it has the ability to pivot outward, which is not something we have on the Sentinel toy. You'll see it has to stay in this position. Now, the feet on this toy aren't terrible, but they're not what we're gonna see on the Sentinel toy. You do have the ability to rock forward and back, but you don't really have much in the way of a twist. And you can see you can do a little bit of this, but that's it. The other thing, which I didn't point out in fighter mode, what I should have, but when you close these feet up, there's no area where propulsion would come out. So that's kind of a ridiculous design in itself. All right, let's check out the Sentinel toy. Whereas the Evolution toy is intuitive and simple, the Sentinel toy is going to be really complicated and something completely new for you, so do check out my separate transformation guide. Now, I harped on the hands on the Evolution toy. The hands here, while similar, are much better. So there's a ball joint connection, everything's nice and stiff. The thumb is also a ball joint here. Fingers and trigger finger operate separately, and there's a little peg for your gun, so it's going to hold on to that gun well. Now, as we come over here, we can look at the joint stiffness, and you can see it's bent at the elbow, and everything is operating just fine. The shoulders on this, on the blue toy, the shoulders were so stiff you couldn't even rotate it. That has been resolved on the red toy. They are rock solid, though. They're very stiff. So you will not have to worry about that gun causing the arm to sway downward. The gun, comparatively undersized, but that also probably helps with not too much weight at the end. But given how stiff all these joints are, you're not gonna have any problem with that. Now, the forearms here also have a rotation point, but you also have a rotation point in the bicep. So that's gonna give you 2 points of articulation there. Now you can see the arm fairly short, so you can't bring it up much more than 90 degrees, but it is going to function very well. Now you move down to the feet, which you can see nice hunks of metal in there, and you can also see rotation, in and out, up and down, much better feet. This was another problem on the blue toy. These were a little bit loose. You got nice stiffness this time around. This toy is gonna handle really well for you and look good doing it. Before we dive into soldier mode, let's stop and talk about missile bays, which, as you know, this vehicle has a lot of them, and both toys representing all of them. In fact, Evolution Toys even added a bonus one here. So on the Sentinel toy, that is your landing gear bay. That is correct per the line art. But if you like the symmetrical look of the Evolution toy leg, that's all right too. The missiles, just tiny red dots. The hinges are just very simple. They fold open hinges, but all the bays, again, present plus an extra. The forearm bays, a little bit bigger red dot, but still just same idea, red dot. The shoulders give us kind of a red tennis ball look. For the size of this toy, this is not enough detail. It just looks a little funny that way. On the other hand, the Evolution toy, similar. It's got little red dots for your missiles in the forearm, and it's got little red dots for your missiles in the legs. But again, this is a smaller toy, so it doesn't seem as jarring. Also, the missile bays on this toy are pretty cool. They're hidden hinges instead of the simple hinges that we get on the Evolution toy. So you slide the door forward and then open it up, which is a nice touch. So both forearm there, and then on the shoulder, this is actually the line art appropriate configuration of the missile bay. Evolution toy kind of did their own thing, kind of following in CM's footsteps, but that's how it's supposed to look. And again, we get the hidden hinge with the extension there. So a little bit nicer execution of the missile bays, but both toys at least having everything accounted for. I think both these toys are no slouch in soldier mode. The Evolution toy has two things that kind of drive me nutty. The head is in a canyon up here, and that even impairs the ability to turn the head, so that's pretty funky. And the nose cone droops way down. Now you do get better length to the arms here and a little bit thicker proportions. So if you like your toy to look more like a bruiser, then Evolution toy is accomplishing that. Now, the big thing that stands out to me though is how plain this toy looks. It comes with a sticker sheet, and you're probably going to want to use it. In contrast, the Sentinel toy has its head in the proper position, goes left, right, and there's even like a ball joint aspect to it, not too crazy with it. But you also get a tucked in nose cone in the back. So all around, great proportions, better dealing with those two aspects. And then you get a ton of painted on detail. And since this is a smaller package, that painted on detail goes a long way and makes this toy just look plain in comparison. Okay, but what about gimmicks? The Evolution toy does have a little flip up panel here that lets you see a painted and glued in ride armor toy nestled in the stowage mode within the chest. The Sentinel toy has something a little bit more intricate here. We can pull the head forward, kind of like you'd see on a VF1 toy, and reveal the pilot figure, which is again nothing like you've ever seen on a previous Legioss toy. We can then turn our attention to the back here, get a fingernail in and pull this piece back here. And once we've created some room, this is actually a double hinge. So we can then get a fingernail on top here and start working that free and towards the back. Now there's an easier way of doing this. That isn't so perfect transformation, but we're not gonna go there. So there you go. Now we've opened the canopy and we can remove the pilot figure and do all sorts of fun poses where the pilot's like climbing out or whatever. So that's a really cool gimmick and something totally new. So which toy is better articulated? A lot of fun hinges on that, right? Well, you've already seen the ratcheted shoulders that spin all the way around. This toy has shoulders that spin all the way around. Very stiff. The Edha toy, almost impossible to move those shoulders. So a big improvement here. They're pretty much right where you want them to be. The elbows on this toy you've already seen. Not super impressive. Maybe a little bit more impressive on the Evolution toy. The knee, it's going to come back about 90 degrees. So that's, again, not super impressive. On the Evolution toy, if we weren't running into the wings here, were pretty similar, about a little more than 90 degrees. You do have a twist point in the leg on the Evolution toy. You do not have that twist point on the Sentinel. The only twisting is up at the hip, but that's pretty much all you really need. And again, the feet on the Sentinel, much more dynamic. Both toys let you bring the arms out at the shoulders, and both toys have hips that go up, down, and let's see who flares out the best here. So we can do pretty aggressive flare there, a little more aggressive than we can get on the Evolution toy. So Sentinel better flaring out. Sentinel has a waist that twists, but it also has a pivot, which is totally new, not something that we're gonna have over here on the Evolution toy, which has a waist, but that giant nose cone sticks into the back and then prevents the waist from working. So if you wanna use the waist, you have to unpeg the winglets, poke the back out a little bit, and there you go. Now the waist is in play. And you've seen that the head on this toy, not nearly as articulated as it is on the Sentinel. So at the end of the day, the Sentinel is the toy that you're gonna be able to get into the more aggressive poses. If you are a big fan of two-hand poses where the gun is across the body, Sentinel is not the best for that. They have the combination of a shoulder that is positioned pretty far back on the chest, along with the shorter arms and even a shorter gun, all coming together to make across the body poses look pretty funky. Now here I've got the longer gun barrel extension on there to help it out, and I am accomplishing it, and you can accomplish it with the shorter gun. It just never looks quite as natural as it would on the Evolution toy. The Evolution toy has longer arms, and it has a shoulder position more towards the front of the chest, which acts to make the arms even longer, and then that's coupled with the much bigger gun. Now again, the problem with the Evolution toy is you don't have a lot of resistance in the joints, so you might have to do something to your toy to modify it a little bit to get those joints stiffer. But if you do, you can get those more natural looking positions where you're holding the gun with both hands. So who won, guys? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. I'm leaning towards the Sentinel, and let me tell you, the one thing I can't do for you in these videos is just tell you about that feel you get when you hold it. And I told you, this is a little heavier toy per centimeter. It feels so much more solid in the hand than the Evolution toy does. This feels like it has thin plastic. You feel the looseness. It is an improvement over their blue release, but it's not the same level as this toy here. And this is a huge improvement over the blue version of its release as well, to the point now where I'm like, hey, if you release a green version of this toy without doing any more tweaks, you're nailing it. They had some issues, some warts. My green release ended up being worse than my red release, so think about that too. You're really doing more of a QA crapshoot with Evolution toy than it appears you will be doing with Sentinel going forward. Check out anymoon.com for my full article, subscribe, and thanks for watching.